Hey everybody, Mike here. So I had an item recently sent out to me by Lexivon to try out and test. In exchange, I told them I'd give them a review. So this is a 2-in-1 tape measure that is not only a 16-foot tape measure, it's also got a built-in laser tape measure that's capable of measuring up to 130 feet. So my first thought when I got this thing out of the box was, man, this would make a really cool Christmas or Father's Day gift for the male in your life who's looking for something that's not going to clutter up the drawer. Essentially, you could take two things and turn them into one. So let's go ahead and dive into this thing. I'll tell you real quick how this thing works. So first off, it's just a normal tape measure. There's a couple of key differences that I think are pretty neat compared to some of the tape measures on the market. And the first thing being, on the end of this thing, it's got a magnetic tip. So if you're measuring against something metal, it's going to help keep that tape measure in place while you're trying to get your measurement. The next thing that's always kind of been a big deal to me is when you get a tape measure, it's got prints on the front and the back side as well. It never fails when I'm trying to take a measurement. It seems like there's always that weird position. I'm trying to get the measurement off the tape measure and all I can see is the back side. And I've always found that somewhat annoying when I can't see the numbers on the back. So having that option on there, I thought was a nice addition. The other unique feature about this tape measure is when you pull the tape out like so, it automatically locks in place no matter where you pull this thing from. It doesn't actually retract until you push the red button here on the side. Some tape measures do that. In fact, on this tape measure here, it doesn't. It goes straight back in and you got to lock that thing in place. Not the end of the world. Not always the most convenient thing either, depending on the situation you're dealing with. Now, where this thing really gets unique, like I said, is the laser tape measure. So on the front here, you notice you got a button. You pull that button down, it powers this thing on. So on the top here, you got a display that shows you your readings. On the front here, you got this laser going out the front. And this thing runs on 2 AAA batteries. Your access door for that is right here on the back. When you lay this thing down to measure, so let's say we're measuring to this box, your measurement's going to be from the back side of the tape measure to wherever the laser dot's hitting the object in front of you. Once you hit your button here on the front again, it's going to take your measurement and it's going to give you the readout here on the top. Now you have 2 different options for your measurements. You can have this fractional in inches, or you can switch this by holding it down and it'll switch it over to meters for you as well. And then if you hold that button down a little longer, it shuts the unit off. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the laser tape measure will measure up to 130 feet. Now, a few things I wanted to go ahead and talk about on the laser tape measure, if you've never used one before. These are ideally used in an indoor environment, although they can be used outdoors as long as it's not a super bright day. So basically, my rule of thumb when I'm using these laser tape measures, and not just this one, but any brand in general, is if you can see the laser dot on the object in front of you, your chances are you're going to get a pretty good measurement. Now, the further away you get from your dot, the more important it is to keep your measuring device stable and still as possible to be able to get an accurate reading. Now, they do advertise this as being a plus or minus 1/16 of an inch, which I have found to be pretty accurate after doing a couple dozen measurements with this thing around the house. Where I find that it starts losing its accuracy is somewhere in that 40 to 50 foot range is when I start seeing that plus or minus 1/16 of an inch. And the lighter the environment gets, the harder it is for that measurement to be accurate as well. But as long as you can see that dot and it's nice and bright on the object in front of you that you're trying to measure, you should be in pretty good shape. Now, a couple scenarios you might find this thing useful in. I plan on keeping this thing in the drawer in the house just as the tape measure we need when we need to grab quick measurements before we run out the door, or if my wife's wanting to put pictures up, something of that nature. But how many times have you gone to walk out the door, you're running over to the hardware store, and you need to have rough room measurements for, let's just say you're looking at carpet that day, or you're trying to measure a window to maybe go look at new curtains. While you've got 16 foot of range when it comes to the actual tape measure here, and you're measuring a window, it's probably going to be easiest just by taking your tape measure out like so. Let's just say you need to get the measurement for your living room real quick so you can see how many square feet that is roughly. That way you can tell the guy at the hardware store what you're working with when you're picking out carpet. You can easily grab that little laser tape measure, you can shoot that thing across the room. That way you get rough dimensions as to what you're looking at, and you got something to give the guys when you get there. That's just one scenario I could think of off the top of my head. But other than that, like I mentioned, this would be a great gift for dad or maybe your son, a great stocking stuffer, just something of that nature. But as I mentioned earlier, I thought this would be a neat little stocking stuffer idea, or maybe Father's Day gift, birthday gift for your son, your father, your brother, you name it. Just something unique that they probably don't already have in their toolbox. But other than that, that's all I've got for you in this review today, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.